Freedom. 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 We have enormous freedom. That's not a gift that was given to us. It's a legacy that was left to us by centuries of struggle, by centuries of people, most of whose names are completely forgotten, the ones who created the freedom and the rights that we now have, and that will be taken away unless you constantly defend them.
Robert Paul Wolff's writings do away with, in a quite eloquent manner, any notion of de jure obedience to a state or an organizational structure of like-minded body. Wolff, clearly not satisfied with just getting rid of de jure obedience, goes further and in a detailed explanation dismisses various forms of government, either by demonstrating that they are simply unattainable in a real-world sense, or that the legislative structure does not and cannot satisfy the conflict between authority and autonomy. In conjunction with Michael Walzer's writings, we seem to have freed up some ambiguities. Walzer, while recognizing some minimal obligation to the state, puts preference to more direct and explicit group relations. Now, if we accept Wolff's detailed rejection of state obligation, we can say that in a nearly just and clearly pluralistic society as our own, we owe our entire allegiance to those explicit and direct group relations. Made, of course, on our own accord. This may seem problematic at first. A society of separate and distinct niche groups, all with a primary allegiance to themselves, may become a powder keg of conflict. However, here we can be assisted by Wolff and Walzer once again. Wolff's focus on Kantian autonomy, if seriously implemented, would presumably lead to separate groups who would act upon their most deliberated concept of what is good for this group. This would be a more satisfying application of Rousseau's notion of general will. Here we could obviously substitute Rousseau's apparent assumption that the general will is inherently correct in favor of saying that the general will is the collective expression of a group of autonomous individuals who, after due deliberation, have come to an agreement on what the group's goals, values, and best interests are. Application of this would therefore allow our groups to be considered morally serious, as Walter puts it. With these notions in place, I feel there would be a more natural occurrence of civil disobedience. These morally serious groups would most likely find that cooperation would be in their own best interests. Incidences of injustice would likely occur, but be quickly caught and challenged by a vigilant public that owes its obedience to these autonomous and morally serious groups. As Rawls clearly points out, a just constitution which allows free association would give rise to these groups, and that any protest, conscientious refusal, or civil disobedience on their behalf would act as a stabilizing mechanism for society at large.